Stardew Valley got yet another update, and besides finally being available on all platforms, arguably the most impactful new addition to the game is the fact that we can now place legendary fish inside ponds. Hello everyone and welcome to another Stardew video. I am so excited for this because today we're gonna take a deep dive into legendary fish, their extended relatives, how they work in ponds, and if they're even worth your time. Spoilers? Yeah, they are. They're pretty good in fact. So let's start off with the absolute basics. Like I said, there's 5 legendary fish in the game. The angler, crimson fish, glacier fish, mutant carp, and the legend. Most of them can only be caught during a specific season and after reaching a certain level in fishing. Except for the mutant carp, you can catch that one as soon as you enter the sewers. Personally, I'd say the angler is the easiest one to catch and the legend definitely the hardest one. Before the 1.6.9 update, if you attempted to place a legendary fish inside a pond, it would say this fish wouldn't be happy in there or something along the lines like that. You never really had a reason to go after legendary fish in the first place unless you were going for a perfection playthrough or you wanted to have the starter up from Willy. You were able to place them inside aquariums like any other fish, and since 1.6, you can smoke fish now as well, including the legendary ones. Though I'm not sure why you'd ever do that unless you really need a quick cash boost. I always thought it was a bit odd that we couldn't place legendary fish inside ponds. Once you catch them, you put them inside an aquarium in your house and that's it. But now it's actually worth to try and catch them as soon as you can, since all of them are worth putting into ponds. Besides legendary fish, you can place G's extended family inside ponds now as well, which are essentially the same fish, just with slightly different sprites. And for the uninitiated, the extended family quest has a chance to appear in the Walnut Room after entering it for the very first time. Upon accepting this quest, you have 3 in-game days to catch all 5 relatives: Mrs. Angler, Glacier Fish Jr., Son of Crimson Fish, Radioactive Carp, and Legend II. They can all be caught in the same location as the legendary ones. Upon placing any of these 10 fish inside a pond, they're ready to produce the very next day. Also, they all have unique water colors. Before the update, there was only 4 other fish in the game that had unique colors, being the lava eel, slimejack, super cucumber, and the void salmon. The legendary fish and their respective relative have the same pond color, except for the angler and Mrs. Angler. Let's take a look at numbers. Angler and Mrs. Angler have the lowest selling row out of the 10, being at base amount 480 gold and 1344 for aged and with the artisan profession. By the way, I will always include the artisan profession on the highest number because I'm gonna assume that most people watching this will probably have the artisan profession anyways, because why wouldn't you? Both the Glacier Fish Jr., and Mutant Carp and Radioactive Carp have a base row sell price for 530 gold and aged row for 1484. Crimson Fish and Crimson Fish Jr. have the second highest selling row in the game with a base price for 780 and aged row for 2184 gold. And lastly is the Legend and Legend II with a base row price for 2530 and aged row for 7084 gold. Are you seeing these numbers? 7000 just for one single piece of aged row is wild. For comparison, the highest selling row before the update was the Lava Eel, starting at base for 380 and the aged variant for 1064. So if you haven't noticed, all of the legendary fish are more profitable than any other fish in the game now. A few other noticeable changes for legendary fish inside ponds. Regular fish usually have a population count that can grow up to 10, and most of them also produce a random assortment of items besides their row. You can check out my fish pond video for that, where I talk over the fish who have the best rewards. Legendary fish only produce roe. They do not have any quests to increase their population, since you can only have one of them in a pond, meaning that you only have to wait a single day for them to be able to start producing. Because the update is so new, I don't have any concrete numbers of when and how often legendary fish produce. As you can see, I have 10 ponds with all of the fish on my beach farm to test this out, and it seems like you can get anything between 0 to 11 roe per day from each pond. Though according to the Stardew Wiki, the lower amount of fish are inside a pond, the less likely it is for them to produce. And as I said before, legendary fish pond capacity is limited to 1, so it makes sense for them not to produce as often as regular fish. So why is it such a big deal to put legendary fish inside ponds anyways? I mean, sure, the legend has some impressive numbers, but this is a fish most people won't bother catching until much later in the game, and by then you probably already have 2 barns with pigs or sheep inside, or the greenhouse filled with ancient fruit. So why bother? Well, I'm glad you asked. Technically speaking, you can have up to 3 legendary fish of the same type. That is, if you use challenge bait. Challenge bait is unlocked once you obtain the fishing mastery. If you have a perfect catch with challenge bait, that means that you will hook 3 fish of the same type. A perfect catch is when the fish doesn't leave the fishing bar even once during the minigame. If you fail 1 time, you get 2 of the same fish. If you fail twice, you get only 1. And more than 3 times, you lose the catch entirely. I say technically because if you manage to perfect catch a legend, then I don't know, you deserve your own achievement, because I know for a fact that I couldn't do that. I couldn't even do that with the radioactive carp, and that's one of the easier legendary ones to catch. There's also a way to get legendary fish if you have a pan with the fish for enchantment. But is that even worth mentioning? Do people even use the pan? So with the fish for enchantment, there's a 10% chance of receiving a location appropriate fish as a reward. So have fun doing that, I guess. No, seriously, if there's one person watching this who unironically uses the pan, then please leave a comment down below. And no, wearing it as a hat does not count. Other than those 2 obscure methods, legendary fish are only obtainable once per save file. However, this does not count for their relatives. Mr. G's extended family is a quest that you can do as often as you want. The only problem is that the quests, same as the ones that appear on the special order board, appear in a random order. But there aren't that many G quests out there, so you'll see it eventually. Within the 3 days of the quests, you can try to catch up as many of the legendary relatives as you can, since they produce the exact same row as the original ones. Out of the 5, I would recommend going for the Son of Crimsonfish, as he has the 2nd highest selling row and isn't that incredibly complicated to catch. However, if you're feeling confident, you can also go after the Legend the 2nd. For the setup you need 1 bait maker, the preserving enchantment on an advanced iridium rod, curiosity lure, seafoam pudding, and a cork bobber. Sal showed a similar build like this in his mastery video, I believe it was, in case it seems familiar to you. The way this works is as followed. You catch one of the legendary relatives, as I said I would recommend the Son of Crimsonfish, pop it into the bait maker, which should give you between 5 to 10 of the target bait, and then continue fishing until you have the amount of legendary fish you want. That's also why we have the preserving enchantment on the rod, since it helps a lot with the limited amount of bait we get. In my case, I was going for the legend because he has the highest selling row, but because of the low spawn rate, I wouldn't recommend doing that. I haven't even talked about the best part yet. In case you don't know, fish ponds also work with golden animal crackers, and having a legendary fish inside a pond is the best new way to use your animal crackers. I'm not even joking. I don't know for sure what the highest amount of row is. The highest number I've seen on my farm is 11, so technically you could get up to 22 legend row if you use an animal cracker on that one. That is base price over 55,000 and aged over 155,000 gold. That is some impressive numbers just for a fish pond. I know that not every person is as in love with fish ponds as I am, and not everyone is gonna have over 100 preserve jars on their farm, because yes, you obviously want to age the row if you're having fish ponds. And preserve jars, well, they're not exactly cheap. I don't know why this needs 8 coal to craft, and I also don't know if this is worse early game, mid-game or late game, because I personally always seem to have an issue with coal. Even more so now that we have fish smokers that also need to consume coal. And why the hell does Clint want 250 coal after the first year of playing? Like, why is this the same amount of money as iron ore? Am I the only person who is bothered by that? So the 2 downsides of investing a lot into fish ponds is that you need quite a few preserve jars to keep up with the production, as aging roe takes between 2 to 3 in-game days. And also sometimes you won't even get any roe at all. But then again, that's the same for most other fish ponds as well. So to quickly summarize everything, it is definitely worth to put all 5 legendary fish and their relatives inside ponds, especially if you play on one of the bigger farms like the standard or beach farm, where you have more than enough space for ponds anyways. The fact that you can catch multiple fish of the extended family, and also the regular ones if you're skilled enough, is kinda crazy. You can easily catch the angler within your first year during fall, since it only requires fishing level 3, and I think it's the easiest one to catch out of the 5. I always thought that fish ponds were one of the more underrated farm buildings, and I'm glad they finally get the attention they deserve. And that covers pretty much everything I have to say about legendary fish inside ponds. I hope you found this video informative, and if you did, please leave a like, it really helps me out a ton. Let me know in the comments down below what your favorite new addition is and why. I always love reading comments. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.